Hello and welcome back to another episode of LMS Cast. I'm joined by a special guest. Her name is Karen Wisch. She's at KarenWisch.com. That's Wisch. And her agency is called Graphics by Design. Karen caught my eye. She built a really cool continuing education project called the Missouri Credentialing Board. We're going to talk about that. But first, welcome to the show, Karen.
Hi, thanks, Chris.
It's awesome to have you here, and we were catching up before we went live here, and you've been around for a while. You got the Lifter LMS shirt in the background. It's awesome.
A little
Um,
swag from you guys, right?
yeah, we do a lot of strategic swag. Like there's no merch store. If you have an item, you're on the good list and doing awesome stuff. But tell us a little bit about you, Graphics by Design. How did you get into this space of helping businesses with technology and marketing and sales and modernizing their tech?
Yeah. Well, I've been around forever. So I graduated with a degree in graphic design before there were computers. I mean, seriously, I took a basic coding class while I was in college, but there was nothing in my field as far as computers. We went through a lab one time and the professor goes, "These are computers. We think they're a fad." And he walked on through. He was wrong. And over time, I did a lot of graphics for people, a lot of publications and stuff. And then one of the people I did graphic design for, they needed a website. And so I started with, oh gosh, what did Word have that they used? Microsoft had
Uh,
Publisher. What, not Publisher, they had something for websites. I did that. And then I did some HTML for them. And then eventually, somebody contacted me through a referral and they said, "Our site's been hacked. Can you fix it?" And I said, "Well, I don't know, but I'll see if I can." And I was able to. And it was a WordPress site. And so I got intrigued by that. And pretty soon they were coming to me for all of their website needs. And it kind of escalated from that, is how I got into designing WordPress websites. It was basically there was a need, and so I filled it. Yeah.
well, tell us about the Missouri Credentialing Board. That's at MissouriCB.com. What
Yes.
what do they do and how they find you and what'd you build?
Well, they do credentialing for the state of Missouri for uh, people who are substance use disorder professionals. So people in that sector need counselors and people to help with recovery. And I was asked to come and make a bid. They were looking for someone to help them with their renewals. They their licenses for their counselors for the state of Missouri need to be renewed, and they wanted to put that online because it was a paper document at the time, and this was probably 7 years ago. And so I went to a meeting with a couple other people, and the other companies were larger, but they wanted a percentage of each of the renewals. So um, the credentialing board wasn't super happy about that. And I said, "Well, I think I can do it. Let me see what I can figure out." And I gave them a bid. At the time, they also were doing a lot of continuing ed. And one of the things they did was a course that was called the Mars course. And the assistant director was in charge of grading all that. So everything was done by mail. Again, this was 7 years ago. So they would send out a program like a document and a quiz. And then the people would mail that back in. He would grade it manually. And then he would mail back the results in the next course. There's probably 11 different sections to the Mars course. And he had to manually grade all 40 or 50 of them each time. And so while I was there, I said, "Well, I think that we can set this up so this is all automated." And that really sealed the deal for them, because this was a lot of time for him. And obviously, using Lifter, it's once it's automated, it's all set up. And so it worked great. it was a huge success for them. And as I was telling you beforehand, that's now, it used to be a class offered twice a year. Now anyone can go on at any time and start the course because it's self-paced and they can finish it when they want. And it's all because it's all set up with Lifter. It's kind of a great solution for them. They're really happy with it.
So what were the like what are the key parts of Lifter? I noticed they're selling these continuing education units, and there's continuing education credits. Or did you set up certificates, or how,
Oh,
uh,
yeah.
like
So
what are all
I,
the nuts and bolts of it?
okay, so I've got the Infinity bundle and I bought the lifetime access to it, which has been awesome. But then I can use the advanced videos. We have videos for a lot of our courses where, so we have it set up so they have to watch the entire video. They can't turn it, they can't speed through it. They have to watch the video. And I kind of love, like, if you open a different window, you can't still listen
Wow.
to the video. It's
Yeah.
like,
You
it's
can't go
really
to Facebook.
cruel.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, rats, this isn't going to work. But I love it for our people because it's so easy to get distracted. So they they watch the video and then they have they can then take the quiz. It grades itself, and if they pass it, they automatically are sent a certificate that I've set up. I use something that's very personal to the credentialing board and looks very official because it is, and it has their director's signature and everything on it. But that's all set up ahead of time, super easy to do. And then if they pass, they get their certificate automatically. If they don't pass, the office gets a notification that they didn't pass. Their supervisor has to contact and get a voucher for the second exam, because we don't do the same exam for each effort, right? So if you fail the first effort, you get a second chance, but your supervisor has to get the voucher code for that, because we set them up so that they have voucher codes, which I'm probably going ahead of where we are, but so we have voucher codes. I use Lifter and Gravity forms, you know, together a lot, and they play nicely together. So that works out really well for our people.
That's awesome. And when I checked, I looked at their site and I think I counted 59 courses. How much?
There's like 64.
Okay,
Yeah.
um, did you set all those up or show them how to do it, or it's a
Oh
little bit
no,
of
I
both?
do all of them.
Okay.
Um, they go ahead and they schedule. They set up the videos themselves, and they give me the quizzes that they want, and then I set everything up for them. Um, they're very busy doing the other half of the stuff. They don't want to mess with this, and I I think I could show them how fairly easily. It's not a hard process, but there's some, there's little caveats that we use that maybe not everybody does. So um, it it's a win-win. I take care of it. They don't worry about it, and it works for them. So
Yeah, that's awesome. And it sounds like a great, relationship. Like they're busy, they just want somebody to handle the website and make sure
right.
everything's good. And that's a great long-term client for you.
It is. It's a really good situation for me, and I have a couple other agencies because I'm in the middle of the state. Our city is the capital of Missouri, and there are a lot of state associations, and a lot of them need CEUs set up, and so I do a couple of different ones beside that. And prior to this, they had used services that cost several $100,000 to do, you know what I mean? And it's like, we're not talking tens of thousands even here. It's way more reasonable, It, and again, if I could get the hundreds of thousands, I'd probably do it, but I haven't figured out how to do that yet. So
WordPress, like, is you can do a lot for what people used to pay 10 times that amount for and stuff
Right.
like that.
Yeah.
Without limits either, like without, caps on number of students or courses or
Right.
teachers or whatever.
Well, and again, for them, before they were having to do the same process every time, and now I think COVID has streamlined a lot of stuff for people. Like I know we talked before COVID, they did a lot of trainings in different areas of the state, and now most of those are done on Zoom or whatever, just because it it's easier. It's less expensive for an employer to give somebody 8 hours off during the day and not pay for their travel, and things like that. And we see huge success with that as far as having the Zoom calls with the education and then following up with the training afterwards, or with the quizzes and information afterwards.
Forms you use? I notice on the Missouri Credentialing Board, there was like a order form for something that had some e-commerce in it. Um,
Mhm.
how do you use Gravity and alongside the LMS? And then what other plugins and things do you find super useful when you're building this type of site?
Well, my theme I use is Generate Press, and then I started with them. I We talked a little offline, and I would say WP Crafter with Adam Preeser. When I first started learning about which LMS software I wanted to use, he recommended you guys, and he had some valid reasons at the time. Again, that was 7 years ago, and I hopped in. And I was like, "This is the way to go for us." But I use Gravity Forms occasionally. They're so blended for me that, like, sometimes there'll be something in the course that I use a Gravity Form for instead, and occasionally I'm trying to, I'm stumped right now as to what, because they're merged together. But we're going to have a peer conference in October. And so there's a registration out there right now that we're using Gravity Forms for, that people just sign up and tell you, give their information. And that doesn't require a learning management system. But all of our trainings do. They all end with a quiz to make sure that they're proficient in the information, if not several quizzes with a series of different trainings within it. I don't know if that answers your question.
People are always using forms in interesting ways alongside Lifter LMS, and it's cool to see what folks are doing. I have to ask you, because you have an agency, the number one question we get from agency folks is how to get clients. It sounds like you have a lot in the Missouri area. Like there's a lot of local word of mouth, perhaps. But what would your advice be on getting and retaining clients for the long term?
Well, I would say retention just means you've got to pay attention to your clients. I'm a one-person agency, so if they call, they're getting me. I think that's part of why they have me, right? It's like I tend to respond quickly, which sometimes is like probably the bane of my existence. But um, I've had a lot of referrals. I seem to be in the education and prevention and recovery area, is because that's where I started, and so by word of mouth, that's what I've gotten. Um, I I have some other out of state things, but they were all, um, at one point there was an association, a national association, and I found out through the Missouri one that they were no longer going to host everybody's website. They all were going to have their own website. So I contacted the head of the national association and said, I do websites for people, and I'm going to contact everybody. if someone contacts you and you need someone to refer them to, here's my information. Here's some samples of my work. And I ended up with like 6 different websites that way, which was nice. Because they all wanted to be very similar to each other, so they were easy to make. Does that make sense? So I would say I have been lucky with getting information and then going after it after that. But most of it, I would say, is referrals from other people.
And clients like it when you're easy to reach and return calls quickly and prove your just your reliability and track record, and you're always there for them.
Right.
It's not that complicated, right?
It isn't. One of my clients said before they had to submit a requisition order, and then in 5 to 7 days they would get a response, and then the change would be made. But part of it's price, right? I'm not charging $200 for 10 minutes for a change. Maybe I should, but that's with a bigger agency, you have a lot more overhead too, right? So I'm sure price is part of it.
For the Missouri Credentialing Board, um, is there anything you can say as to the impact that platform is having on the world or people? Like, do you know anything, even just roughly, like in terms of, I mean, we mentioned, I think you said 64 courses. That means that a lot
Mhm.
of people are flowing through this thing. But
Right.
what impact is that organization having with these online learning programs?
Well, one of their programs, which is they have a crisis peer, and these are people who you have to be in recovery to actually get that certification. And these are peers mentoring peers, right? So it's kind of awesome. These are people who maybe if they didn't have someone else to help, they'd still need recovery, but they're able to go back after they've gone through the process, and they can help other people who are in the middle of a drug crisis. And I mean, I don't know how much you know about the opioid crisis in the United States right now, but it's, you know, more people die of overdoses than ride in one 747 a day, but nobody says anything about it. And if a 747 crashed every day, there'd be people paying attention. So that's part of why I love what they do. They're saving lives.
It's a, it's a great impact. Um, Tell us more about your learning curve with learning how to use all this stuff in WordPress. You mentioned following WP Crafter videos, and you're
Hmm.
self-taught. It sounds like.
I am.
Um, Besides the graphic design, which you went to school for, which is awesome.
Right.
But like,
But
yeah,
yeah, I well, I would say you guys, your help is awesome. I mean, I when I first started, I needed a lot of hand holding, and you guys were great. I would send you something, and it's like sometimes it was a very obvious thing, sometimes it wasn't. But between watching the videos and doing that, and now that I have the Infinity bundle, I go to office hours every Thursday with Emily and Kurt, and that's been very helpful. And it's great to have other people there with problems, because sometimes I don't know I have a problem until somebody else's problem gets fixed, right? There's extra information that I'm getting that I wouldn't get if I wasn't part of that group. I really appreciate that. You guys are very good at documenting things and explaining it. And I would say ease of use is part of why I'm still with you guys and why I bought the Infinity bundle.
that's awesome. Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. We always feel like support is like a feature of the product. It's not like a cost that we have to minimize. It's something we invest in, and
Yeah.
like you said, your clients like the fact that they can talk to you and call you. Like we want to make ourselves as available as much as we can and be real humans and help people. And
Yeah, I would say you guys are.
I don't know where I heard it on a podcast. Like this is like 10 years ago. Somebody dropped an idea in my head that caused what you're talking about, which is that the support documentation, it's part of your marketing content. Like you should invest just as much time in supporting your customers with content as you do trying to, do sales pages and marketing stuff. And that really clicked for me. And we even, for a while, we would have everybody came to a Zoom call and would write documentation together for an hour on Thursdays or something. And a learning management system is not an easy marketing website with like a homepage and about page and a contact page. It's got a
Right.
lot going on. So
There's a
it's,
lot of bells and whistles, right?
yeah,
Uh, yeah, I would say that most of the time, whatever my problem was, there was a way to resolve it very easily. And if there wasn't, you guys are like, okay, if I can have access to your site so I can see what's going on, because sometimes, you know, the websites act a little squirrely. But I would say in general, it, you were able to fix it or give me a suggestion of something else. When I first started, I did not have a good host. I didn't realize that was going to be an issue, but I didn't realize how many people were going to be coming to the website. And I think that's increased. And I use Cloudways now, and I'm very happy with it. And that was one of your all's suggestions at the time. I don't know if that's still one of your go-tos, but yeah. Because I'm able to scale with them, which is very helpful. As the site's grown in popularity, we've been able to scale the size and manage the workload that we've got.
yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, sometimes, I mean, you can start on like a cheap shared hosting account. But if
Mhm.
something like Missouri Credentialing Board starts getting a ton of traffic and a ton of users, you got to get on something a little
Right,
beefy.
right. And it's like, if people are required to have a certain amount of continuing education hours, and we're one of the places that can provide them for them, and we do it very reasonably. Most of the courses are $5 or $10, so you know it it draws more people to them, but it's also a nice side source of revenue for them, right? It's stuff they don't do anything about, and it continues. They don't. The selling point for LMS, I think, is the fact that once it's in place, people pay their money, they review the materials, they take the quiz, they receive their certification, and no one in the office has to deal with any of it. They get an email that says John Smith passed his Mars course and gets 3 units of continuing ed. You know, and a lot has gone on in the background, but they don't have to mess with it. It's a hands-free thing for them, and yet people are getting what they need, and they're getting all the bells and whistles that you guys implement. So you pass quiz one, it lights up and it goes, congratulations, you're through with quiz one, you did it, and you go on to the next place. All that stuff is wonderful. And it's not stuff I even have to think about. It's stuff you guys thought about. So it's great. So, sorry, my desk is wiggling.
Hearing from this story with this client is the time saving. Like you came in
Yeah,
and you were able to automate and time save like to a level that is exponential in terms to what they were doing before.
right. I would say they have grown exponentially, partially because of that. Their staff is much larger. They're doing a lot more than what they were before. They have several programs that they do now for the state of Missouri, and before they couldn't do it because it it was so much. I wouldn't say not important stuff, but it was stuff that they had to do, but they couldn't get it done. right? Because, they're grading quizzes instead of working on helping people save people, and now that's all taken care of for them. They don't have to worry about it. They can deal with the peers and with the crisis that's going on rather than going, yes, they passed this test or not. It's like, it's crazy how automating just this one part has allowed them to grow in other ways because they have the time to think about it. So
Buying back your time with automation, it's what you can do with that time once you have it back. You can make more programs, you can help more people, you can scale in other ways. That's a really beautiful project there.
right. Well, and that's exactly what they've done. They've taken that time and they've moved on with it, which is awesome. It's uh, just having time that they've never had before because they could never get ahead of these quizzes and stuff, which sounds silly, but again, we're 7 years later, right? I mean, the world has changed a lot in the last 7 years, and I'm sure it'll change a ton in the next seven. You just it I, and back to the original reason they hired me was so that they could get their renewals done. The people were not ready for online renewals at the time. It just was an epic fail. It just couldn't do it. And now 7 years later, they're doing it. No problem. It's just the change in being comfortable with being online that people, and again, I hate to give COVID any credit for anything good, but I would say that people had to learn how to do things online in that time period. So
Like you said, like, hey, maybe we should do this by Zoom instead of airplane tickets in multiple days.
right, right. Well, and it's like I have a physician friend and she's like, oh, yeah, we used to go to Orlando and sit in a very cold hotel. I never got out of the hotel. I'd much rather sit on my couch and watch the Zoom meeting there and, be in the comfort of my own home. It's a lot easier when I'm not freezing, and have spent the money. And it's not like I ever saw anything in Orlando but the inside of the hotel.
Karen Wisch, that's KarenWisch.com, K-A-E-R, or sorry, KarenWisch.com. We were talking about the Missouri Credentialing Board. Thank you, Karen, for coming on the show. Thank you for being a shining example of an education entrepreneur, somebody who empowers others to lift up others through education. It sends out a ripple of positive impact in the world. And thank you for sharing your story with us today. Is there anywhere people can go to connect with you besides your website or just KarenWisch.com?
And just my website. That's all.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Karen, for coming on the show. We really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Chris. And thank you so much for getting Lifter LMS together because it's awesome.
You bet.